As this drags on, a lot of people are looking and seeing if it's going to be helping the GOP with gaining ground with voters in these states going forward. But it sounds like as they're winning sort of these primaries and caucuses and they're leaving town, they're not really leaving behind a big organization. So tell us what's going on.
You know, one of the reasons that the Republicans fiddled with their calendar this year and made it so much longer and more drawn out was they were hoping to see the Republican candidates do something similar to what Obama did in 2008, which was to galvanize a lot of support in these swing states, leave behind volunteers, etc. But we've seen nothing really similar to that going on, particularly in big, important states like Ohio. Romney came in, he won the state, but mainly by throwing a lot of ad money into certain media markets, but not with a lot of organization. So what you're seeing now, especially with the Obama campaign, actually, the Obama campaign now has 12 offices open in Ohio alone, and has more than 14 in Florida, Colorado, et cetera. I mean, I think they have 8 in Virginia at the moment. So the Republican National Committee and a lot of the state Republican parties are starting to mobilize way earlier than they did in 08. In 08, they waited for about 2 months after McCain became the nominee before they really started to send troops out into the field. Now they're doing it already with still perhaps months to go, or at least multiple weeks before we know who the Republican nominee is.
Yeah, and yet, Neil, there's still ground for the GOP to make up in key battleground states such as Pennsylvania. You think of Nevada. Are they going to be able, do they have enough resources at that level to be able to build up a beachhead in these key areas?
And Neil, right before you start, we're just showing right now to our viewers a graph that shows a dip in registration for both parties that sort of since 2008. In the red, obviously, the Republicans, blue, Democrats in those states. So continue on. We just wanted to point out what they're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, that itself is a pretty good illustration of the challenge that both parties face, really, which has seen drop-offs in registration since 2008 and a pretty big surge, an interesting one, in independent registrations in a lot of important states. So that's going to be one focus. Just also a lot of the kind of basic door-to-door outreach to voters, trying to identify who your supporters are and make sure that they come out. And this traditionally has been a function that Republicans have left to the RNC and the state parties, while Obama and his campaign are very much going to be doing this on their own. They have a lot of ground to make up, the Republicans, but on the other hand, they're saying that they're confident that they're going to have time to do it, particularly once, they do have a nominee and are able to move forward a little more swiftly. But on the other hand, there is obviously some apprehension because Obama has such a huge head start with no real opposition facing him at the moment.
And how much of a challenge is it then? You mentioned that they're going to be going door to door, talking to voters, but if they don't have one candidate that they can push, it's probably very difficult in the sales pitch, as it were. They're obviously it's more just Republican against Democrat versus this candidate was better for you than Obama necessarily.
It is challenging. This weekend, the Republican Party in 7 big counties in Virginia, which of course has become a key swing state, are sending out thousands of volunteers. They're going to go door to door with iPads, iPhones, and basically, how did you vote in the last election? Try to, collect data on people to figure out who they can best target when, we get closer to the election. Virginia is complicated because people don't register by party there, so it becomes more, challenging to target your kind of people. But they're putting a big effort into making sure that they can do that, even without having a nominee and a face that they can get behind.
And Neil, the Romney campaign prided itself on its organizational expertise as it conducted these primary campaigns, but they did it, as you mentioned previously, with big onslaughts of media, rather than the kind of pressing the flesh that President Obama did in 2008. Does that kind of clinical means to Romney's success, just kind of leave his established base dissipating as he leaves the state?
Well, his was very different. I mean, his organization was heavy on reaching out to establishment party leaders, county GOP chairmen, things like that. Well, if you look at 2008 for Obama, I mean, he went into Cincinnati, for instance, and had 2 big fundraisers, $40 a plate. Hundreds and hundreds of people came. They took down names. They enlisted those people as volunteers. They had a storefront there in Cincinnati for the primary itself, which they returned to a couple months later and reopened. It's a very different style. The kind of community organizer style that Obama has is very much a part of his campaign then and now. And stylistically, the Romney campaign just really isn't like that.